You're watching Virginia This Morning.
Well, welcome back to Virginia This Morning. More than half of all marriages end in divorce, and one of the top reasons people split is because of money. It's important to make sure your financial lives are also in sync. Richmond financial expert Bryan is back to talk with us about prenuptial vows. JB, it's great to see you.
You've thoroughly depressed me with the
It's
intro.
not a very uplifting statistic.
Not at all.
But if you're having this conversation about these financial issues before you're getting married, maybe that statistic can change.
And you're right. If we can get the couple comfortable with talking about money, then they can handle anything. And I really love this topic because I think that they need to start off the relationship on the right track with being able to fully communicate. And let's start communicating with just a budget. Make sure that you sit down before you get married with your loved one and decide about a budget. How putting the incomes together and how you're going to spend that money together, because too often one loved one will have different spending habits than the other. So if we get that out in the open at the beginning, then they're more likely, the bad spender or the good spender or the one that's just too tight on the money is more likely to compromise if we talk about it before. And then also debt. You know, debt is a big issue, and I've found that many premarital counselors have been doing credit checks, and I agree with that 100%, that we need to see what debt each person is carrying, and the credit report will really put it all out there. And if you still like them after looking at the credit report, you're good. No.
You made it through two very big hurdles.
Yes, but you may get married and your plan was to purchase a home, and then you check your credit report after you got married and you find out that that person cannot help you purchase the home because their credit is bad. So you may need to just find out about what is going on with their credit pre-marriage so that you can make plans together on what changes you're going to make, how your goals are going to be compromised, and surprises never help.
Because
never help.
Money guides all of that. You've given two very important pieces of advice.
Yes.
Both will give a lot of people heartburn because creating a budget is not easy to do,
Yes.
nor are people comfortable with it.
Oh, you're good. You're right.
And debt, when you are the one that maybe is carrying that debt, there can be a lot of shouldering going on there.
And then that way you don't have to sit down and go through the humiliating experience of if you have a lot, of writing it all down. Just do the credit reports, and then you know what changes you can make, or that they're both great. You know you're a match made in heaven, at least on the credit report. If you both have great credit, that's a good marriage right there.
There's a lot to be said for looking good on paper.
That's right.
You also need to cross the hurdle of individual or combined accounts. A lot of times these days we're coming together. You may already have a household established that you're bringing together.
You're right on point there. And imagine if you're getting married and the person has been married before, and they have children and expenses that are going to be associated with the children and things like that. So we need to decide, are we going to live as one big banking account, or are we going to have one for the family and two separate ones for the individual, and how much should you both put in this joint account? And I love the idea of the joint account for the household and then having two individual accounts. But some couples stay totally separate. They each have separate accounts the entire marriage, and it works out great for them. I have many clients that do that, where some clients have a household account, but you need to talk at the beginning, how much are you going to be putting into that household account, and how are we going to make sure, and when you have the budget, that household account, you already know what needs to be in there so that you can meet those expenses. You don't want your expenses to exceed the income that's going into that household account.
And it's important to note that there's not a right answer to that. It's what works best for you and this union.
The right answer is the answer that the person who has the strongest personality does. No, I'm joking, but that happens a lot. That's why it needs to, we need to talk about it up front so that you can have a love right answer.
Yes.
So that's a very good point, because if not, that strong personality is going to dominate, and the other person will eventually come up with things that they don't agree with. So you need to encourage that person who doesn't want to communicate to communicate. And one point that I also want to know while I'm thinking about it, there was a Supreme Court case it went all the way to the Supreme Court that a first wife was the beneficiary form because the husband had divorced, remarried 10 years later, died, and forgot to change the beneficiary form from the 10-year-old marriage. So it went all the way to the Supreme Court, but the person on that document was still there. So as a good prenuptial thing is to update your beneficiary forms. And if you have children by a previous marriage, make sure that you talk about that up front. Do you want to include them on the beneficiary forms? What percentage? Because you're going into debts together that these life insurances will take care of.
Yeah.
So if you have the beneficiary form incorrectly, then the life insurance is not going to pay out to cover those expenses. And that's basically what a life insurance policy for your loved one is for, to cover the expenses that they were covering during the marriage.
So whether you're establishing a new insurance policy or if you're entering a new union, make sure that you update it. We're out of time already. You've got such great advice for us.
It can go on and on when you're talking about money.
That's why they come and talk to you. We're going to let everybody know how
love
they have
and money. This could go on all day.
all
Thank
week
you.
long. You have the chance to attend free financial workshops presented by Bryan tomorrow, October 7th at noon, and then again at 7 p.m. 4860 Cox Road, Suite 200 in Glen Allen. To reserve your spot, visit us online at WTVR.com/VTM. We'll post a link for all the information.